Riley Factor, the #1 cable news show for 16 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Dana Perino in for Bill O'Reilly. And in the Factor follow-up segment tonight, some tough language from Attorney General Jeff Sessions on the topic of illegal immigration. He traveled to the Mexican border yesterday and pulled no punches.
This is a new era. This is the Trump era. The lawlessness, the abdication of duty to enforce our laws, and the catch and release policies of the past are over. Pursuant to the President's executive order, we will now be detaining all adults who are apprehended at the border. They will not be released. To support this mission, we have already surged 25 immigration judges to detention centers along the border. And I want to thank personally the many judges who answered our call to support this initiative. In addition, we will put 50 more immigration judges on the bench this year and 75 next year.
And in an interview that aired this morning on the Fox Business Network, President Trump reiterated his campaign pledge to build a border wall.
I'm going to build the wall 100%. In fact, we had hundreds of bidders. We have many, many designs. I've seen 10 of the top, but I want to see more. In fact, people aren't even trying to get through anymore because they know they can't. We're looking at designs, and we're going to be making a decision very shortly.
Joining us from Washington is Democratic strategist and former Missouri State Representative Don Calloway, and here in New York, Alfonso Aguilar, president of the Latino Partnership for Conservative Principles. So it's great to have you both. Let me ask you, Alfonso, why do you like this move?
Well, look, we have to enforce the law. And what the Trump administration is doing is really looking at people who have criminal records. In the case of the border, we're looking at people who are entering illegally on multiple locations. And I think it makes sense. In terms of fencing, we have to extend fencing. And ironically, by putting in place immigration enforcement measures, by extending and guaranteeing border security, we're going to be in an environment where perhaps we could get immigration reform. Remember that Donald Trump recently said that we need to find consensus between Democrats and Republicans to achieve immigration reform. But the focus is people with criminal records. This is not about mass deportation. There are a lot of people out there trying to scare Latinos. This is about removing bad people who have criminal records.
And even though the administration continues to try to emphasize illegal immigration, Don, I wanted to ask you about your concerns, because you said that in some ways you think that this move would be unconstitutional. Why?
Oh, it will absolutely be unconstitutional, Dana. Let's look at what we're fundamentally talking about here. We're not talking about Canadian immigrants from our northern borders, nor immigrants from Europe, Africa, or even the Caribbean. This is very specifically a decision made to target Latin American immigration at our southern border. And that's the fundamental basis of the probable unconstitutionality here. What we're going to see is Latin American immigrants specifically targeted by ICE agents and specifically enforced at the border in a way that we won't see happening from immigrants from anywhere else in the world who want to come into this country. And that is a fundamental denial of the Equal Protection Clause, which, applies, wait a second, Mr. Aguilar, which applies to not only United States citizens, but all living within our borders. And the problem is the predictable disparity in enforcement here, which we're going to see from the Trump administration. So the only question here is not when this will be invalidated. It's a procedural matter of will it happen on the front end as a matter of preemptiveness with like a TRO, or will it happen on the back end when plaintiffs' advocates and immigration activists file a suit.
You think that that's wrong? Why?
Well, look, no constitutional right is absolute. There is much more traffic of illegal immigrants through the southern border than the northern border. So obviously there's an interest to detain people and ensure that we don't release them. Because remember, under the Bush years, we ended the practice of catch and release.
Right.
Every time we released an undocumented immigrant and we asked them to show up for their immigration hearing, they wouldn't show up. So we're reestablishing that. And let me tell you, under the Obama administration, under his priorities, anyone who arrived illegally after 2014 had to be removed as well, even if they didn't have criminal records. So they were just not doing the job. So I think we have to do this. This is about enforcing the law, prioritizing in terms of going after individuals with criminal records, so that we can get into a position that we can bring people out of the shadows who have no criminal record.
Let me ask Don, are you somewhat supportive, though, that President Trump has not rescinded the executive order about the Dreamers? And would you be willing to sort of meet him halfway if President Trump says he wants to do a consensus immigration reform. Would you be willing to work that out?
I would love to see immigration reform, but the reality of the matter in D.C. right now is the same as it was a year ago. The House Freedom Caucus is not in a position that is about to allow immigration reform. The Senate came to a very reasonable consensus on immigration reform, but there's been nothing in the Trump administration to even show that it supports the Rubio and the other Republican moderates. But look, but I want to go back to what you said a minute ago, Mr. Aguilar, all constitutional rights not being absolute. The problem here is the predictable, disparate enforcement that we will see from this policy. And the reality of the matter is, if you are an immigrant to this country and not from a Latin American country, you care about this crackdown about as much as a fish cares about an umbrella, which is to say you don't. Because the reality is that this is specifically targeted against Latin American immigrants from our southern border.
The majority of undocumented immigrants are from Latin America. That's just a reality.
If we're being intellectually honest about this, we cannot constitutionally single out one group of immigrants, and we will see that this
majority of undocumented immigrants are.
Don, let me give Alfonso the last word. Go ahead.
Look, I am hopeful. I think that both parties have to find a way to achieve a consensus. Donald Trump has not rescinded DACA. He has said that he wants to find a solution, a legislative solution, to help the Dreamers, those who came here illegally
no fault
when
of their
they're
own,
minors.
right?
And he also said that he thinks that Democrats and Republicans need to work together. I think that's a very positive sign. But what we're hearing from Democrats is everything.
Well, I think let's just see. Maybe we can all get together again and work it all out.
This is going to go the way of the travel ban. It'll be viewed unconstitutional.
We'll see. We'll bring it back if that's so. All right, a quick footnote. The latest contributing Factor podcast is about how the Pacific Northwest has become the epicenter of the opposition to President Trump's immigration policies. That's well worth a listen on either BillO'Reilly.com or iTunes. And a quick